All right, picture this. A valley. Fog rolling over jagged rocks. Somewhere in the distance, a mammoth is doing something it probably shouldn't be doing near a cliff edge. And in the middle of all this prehistoric chaos, there's a tribe of cavemen who are about to accidentally invent something that will haunt humanity for the next 40,000 years. The music video. But before we get to the glitter, the slow motion hair flips, and the guy dancing on top of a rock like he owns the place, we need to talk about how absolutely unprepared this tribe was for what was coming. Meet Grog. Grog is the tribe's self-appointed idea guy. Nobody elected him. He just showed up one day holding a rock and said, "I have vision." And everyone was too tired to argue. Grog's latest vision involves banging two sticks together in a rhythm he heard in his head after eating a suspicious purple berry. He calls this rhythm the beat. Everyone else calls it that annoying noise Grog won't stop making. Next to Grog is Thud, who is built like a boulder and has the emotional range of one too. Thud doesn't talk much. Thud mostly grunts, lifts things, and occasionally falls into rivers for reasons nobody has ever figured out. Thud is going to become extremely important later, so keep him in mind. Then there's Muga, who is, frankly, the only person in this entire tribe with something resembling common sense. Muga spends most of her time rolling her eyes at Grog's ideas while simultaneously being the one who ends up fixing them. If you've ever worked with a Grog in real life, you already know a Muga personally. You might even be a Muga. If you are, drop a comment because we see you. And finally, we have Chief Baba, the tribe's leader, who has approximately 4 settings: sleeping, eating, yelling, and mysteriously vanishing whenever there's actual work to do. Baba is the kind of chief who takes credit for things going well and blames the spirits when things go badly. Sound familiar? It should. Some things never change. So here's where our story begins. It's a regular evening in the valley. The fire is crackling. Everyone's chewing on something that used to be alive. And Grog stands up, sticks in hand, and announces to the entire tribe that he has created a sound. Nobody claps. Someone coughs. A baby starts crying somewhere in the back, which honestly feels like the appropriate reaction. But Grog doesn't care. Grog bangs the sticks together in his weird little rhythm, and then he starts humming. And I mean humming badly, like offensively badly, like the kind of humming that makes birds fly out of trees just to get away from it. And this is where things get interesting, because Thud, who has never shown interest in anything besides food and rocks, starts nodding along. Just a little. Just his head bobbing slightly to the rhythm, and then his foot starts tapping. And before anyone can stop it, Thud stands up and starts stomping around the fire in what can only be described as the world's first and possibly worst dance move. Muga watches this entire scene unfold with the exact expression you'd expect from someone watching their coworkers do karaoke after one too many drinks. But here's the thing, she can't look away. None of them can. There's something happening here, something new, something that 40,000 years later, teenagers will be doing in their bedrooms in front of a ring light, except with slightly less rock banging and slightly more choreography learned from short videos on a screen. Grog, sensing the momentum, decides to take it a step further. He starts adding words to his humming. Bad words. Nonsense words. Words that don't mean anything but somehow rhyme, which honestly puts him ahead of some modern songwriters. And the tribe, against every ounce of their better judgment, starts to like it. By the end of the night, Grog has an actual song. It's called, and I promise I'm not making this up, Rock Go Boom. It is, structurally speaking, one of the dumbest pieces of music ever conceived by a human being. But it's catchy. It's stuck in everyone's head. Even Muga, who spent the whole evening rolling her eyes, catches herself humming it while she's grinding berries the next morning, and she looks personally betrayed by her own brain. This is the part of the story where things should have stayed simple. A song. A dumb, catchy song that the tribe enjoys around the fire sometimes. That's it. That's all it needed to be. But Grog, as established, has vision. And vision, unfortunately, always wants more. A few days later, Grog gathers everyone again, and this time he's got a new announcement. He doesn't just want people to hear Rock Go Boom, he wants people to see it. He wants, in his own words, a moving picture of the song, so everyone across every valley knows Grog made it first. Muga asks the obvious question, how exactly do you make a moving picture when nobody has invented pictures that move, or honestly pictures that do much of anything besides sit there on a wall being a rock with a shape scratched into it? Grog does not have an answer to this. Grog rarely has answers. Grog has ideas, and then he makes other people find the answers. This, it turns out, is basically the entire job description of a music video director, so in a weird way, Grog might be more qualified for this than anyone realizes. And so begins the single most chaotic production week in the history of the human species, all in service of a song about a rock going boom. The first problem is the concept. Every good music video, even a prehistoric one made of dirt and desperation, needs a concept. Grog's first pitch is that the video should just be him, standing very seriously in the middle of the valley, staring directly at the audience while lightning strikes behind him for dramatic effect. There is one small issue with this plan. There is no lightning. It is a perfectly sunny day. Grog suggests they simply wait for a storm. Muga points out that storms don't work on a filming schedule, and also that they don't currently have a way to film anything at all, seeing as cameras won't exist for tens of thousands of years. Grog considers this for a long moment and then says, "And again I want to stress I am not making any of this up. Then we will act out the lightning ourselves." This is how Thud ends up standing behind Grog, holding two burning branches, smashing them together to create sparks every time Grog throws his arms up dramatically. It does not look like lightning. It looks like a man having some kind of medical episode while his large friend nearly sets both of their hair on fire, but Grog is thrilled. Grog says this is the vision. Muga says this is a fire hazard, and honestly, she's not wrong on either count. Now, here's the thing about early creative projects, whether you're talking about cavemen or modern content creators. The idea always comes easy. It's the execution that turns into a nightmare, and this tribe is about to learn that lesson the hard way, repeatedly, over the course of several increasingly disastrous days. The second problem is wardrobe. Grog has decided that for his big moment, he cannot simply wear his regular animal hide. He needs, in his words, a look. Something memorable. Something people will talk about in other tribes, in other valleys, possibly for generations. So, Grog raids literally every resource the tribe has. He takes feathers from birds nobody asked him to bother. He smears mud in patterns across his face that he insists means something spiritual, but actually just look like he fell face first into a swamp. Because he did, twice, trying to get the pattern right. He ties vines around his arms in a way that he thinks looks powerful, but actually just restricts his circulation, which becomes a real problem about 10 minutes into filming when his hand goes numb mid-performance. Muga watches him strut around in this getup and asks, with the patience of a woman who has clearly run out of patience several ideas ago, what exactly the vines and mud and feathers have to do with a song about a rock going boom? Grog's answer, nothing. That's the point. It's art. And listen, say what you want about Grog, but he accidentally invented an entire genre of music video logic that still exists today. Nothing has to make sense as long as it looks cool and the beat is catchy enough that nobody stops to question it. The third problem, and honestly the biggest one, is that they still don't have any way to actually record any of this. There's a song, there's a costume, there's a very committed lightning simulation performance from Thud, but there's no camera, no film, no screen, nothing. They're essentially planning to put on an elaborate show for an audience of exactly nobody, because the concept of recording something to watch later simply does not exist yet. This is where Muga, despite constantly being the voice of reason and constantly being ignored, finally gets fed up enough to actually solve the problem herself. Because that's usually how it goes, right? The person complaining the loudest about how ridiculous the plan is ends up being the one who saves it. Muga remembers something. A few weeks earlier, she noticed that if you polish a certain kind of dark stone smooth enough, it reflects your face back at you, sort of like looking into still water, except portable, and significantly less likely to have something biting your ankle while you use it. She digs one of these polished stones out of storage. It's not perfect. The reflection is dark, a little warped, but it works. You can see yourself in it. You can see movement in it. She brings this to Grog and says, essentially, here's your moving picture. Point yourself at it, and people standing behind it can see you. Grog is predictably unimpressed at first because it's not exactly a screen you can show to other valleys later. But then Muga explains the actual plan, and this is the moment the entire music video concept clicks into place for real. If people stand around the polished stone while Grog performs in front of it, They can watch the performance reflected back, live, in real time, as it happens. By the way, if you want to go even deeper into the secret lives of ancient humans, I just launched a full course called The Secret Lives of Ancient Humans. 10 modules, 3+ hours of content covering everything we never talk about on YouTube. What they feared, how they communicated, what hunted them, and much more. Plus an exclusive PDF guide included. Link in the description. See you inside. It's not a recording. It's something else entirely. It's the first ever live viewing experience, which, if you think about it, is basically where music videos come from in the first place. Performance. Presented in a way people can actually watch. Grog loves this idea so much he immediately tries to take credit for it, which is extremely on brand. But we all know who really solved the problem here. So now they have the concept, the costume, the lightning effect, and a viewing method. All that's left is to actually put on the show. This is where things fall apart in the most spectacular way possible. First rehearsal, Thud's timing is off. He's supposed to smash his branches together right as Grog throws his arms up for the big dramatic moment. Instead, he does it a full 3 seconds late, which means Grog is standing there, arms raised, face intense, absolutely nothing happening behind him, for an uncomfortably long stretch of silence. It looks less like a powerful lightning god, and more like a man who's forgotten what he was doing mid-sentence. They try again. This time, Thud overcorrects and smashes the branches too early, sending sparks flying directly onto the back of Grog's mud-covered head. Grog screams in a way that is decidedly not part of the performance, spins around, and swats at his own hair like he's being attacked by invisible bees. The polished stone, meanwhile, faithfully reflects every single second of this disaster back at the small crowd that's gathered to watch, and at this point, people are laughing. Not the reaction Grog was hoping for, but genuinely the reaction the tribe deserves after all this buildup. Third attempt, the vines Grog tied around his arms finally cut off enough circulation that his hand goes completely numb right as he's supposed to do his big dramatic gesture. So instead of a powerful, sweeping arm movement, it just kind of flops, like he's waving away a fly with a limb that's stopped listening to his brain. Muga has to run in mid-performance to cut the vines off, which of course also gets reflected in the stone for everyone to see. By this point, you'd think Grog would throw in the towel, cut his losses, maybe just go back to banging 2 sticks together around the fire like a reasonable, non-vision-having person. But no. If there's one thing this whole story teaches us, it's that the people with the least self-awareness are often the ones who refuse to quit. And somehow, that stubbornness is exactly what it takes to actually finish something. So they keep going. And on what I believe was somewhere around the 7th or 8th attempt, something finally clicks. Thud nails the timing. The sparks fly at exactly the right moment. Grog's arms, freshly unnumbed thanks to Muga's vine-cutting intervention, sweep upward in a genuinely dramatic gesture right as the sparks catch the light behind him. His mud and feather look, ridiculous as it is, actually reads as striking in the flickering firelight reflected in the polished stone. And his humming, that same dumb, catchy melody from a few nights earlier, rings out across the valley while the whole tribe watches this bizarre, chaotic, half-accidental performance unfold in the reflection. And here's the thing. It works. Not because it's polished, not because it makes sense. It works because it's committed. Grog throws everything he has into this ridiculous 3-minute performance, and that commitment is contagious. People are nodding along. Someone starts clapping the rhythm. A kid in the back starts doing his own version of Thud's earlier accidental dance. By the time it's over, the whole tribe is buzzing. Word spreads fast, and I mean fast, considering the fastest form of communication available is literally someone running to the next valley and yelling about it. Within a couple of days, people from neighboring tribes are showing up just to see what all the fuss is about. Grog, of course, milks this for everything it's worth. He starts referring to himself as the original performer, which is deeply ironic given how much of this entire process he actually botched before it worked, but nobody in the tribe bothers correcting him because at this point, everyone's just enjoying the show. Now, you'd think this is where the story ends. Big performance, tribe loves it, everyone goes home happy. But remember, this whole video was originally happening in front of a live audience using a polished stone as a mirror. Nobody's actually seen a recording of it. Nobody outside that one crowd on that one night experienced the real thing. And Grog, ever the man with a vision problem, is not satisfied with that. He wants more people to see it. He wants people in valleys who weren't there that night to somehow experience what happened. He wants, essentially, distribution. And this right here is the actual birth of what we now call the music video, because up until this point, all they'd made was a live performance. What Grog wants next is something people can watch again and again, something that exists beyond that one single night. The tribe has no idea how to make that happen. There's no way to record light. There's no way to save a reflection. Whatever happened in front of that polished stone happened once, and then it was gone, existing only in the memories of everyone who watched it. Muga, once again forced into the role of problem solver because Grog is too busy basking in his own reputation to actually think logically, starts experimenting. She tries painting the performance from memory onto the cave walls. Sequences of images meant to be looked at one after another to recreate the motion. It's clumsy. It's basically the earliest, roughest version of something like a picture book or a flip book, except scratched into stone with a sharpened rock. But it's something. If you stand in front of the wall and let your eyes move quickly across the panels in order, you get a rough sense of motion. Grog throwing his arms up, Thud smashing the branches, sparks flying. It's not a moving picture exactly, but it's the ancestor of one. This cave wall becomes a bit of a local attraction. People from other tribes travel to see the wall where Grog moves, which again is deeply funny because it took an entire ensemble of people to actually make that performance happen, but Grog's name is the one that sticks. At this point, you might be wondering, does the story of the music video just end here, with some cave paintings and a guy with a swollen ego? Well, not quite. Because remember, the title of this whole thing is Before the Music Video, which means everything you've just heard. All of this chaos, all of this trial and error, all of this stumbling toward something that resembles what we now recognize as a music video was really just the setup. The actual full performance, the real deal, the one that gets passed down and imitated and eventually becomes an entire genre of human creativity that hasn't happened yet. Because here's what happens next. A few weeks after the cave wall becomes a local attraction, a traveler from a distant valley passes through. He's seen the wall, he's heard the story, and he's got an idea that even Grog, in all his overconfidence, never considered. He suggests that instead of relying on a reflection that disappears the moment it happens, or a wall painting that only shows a rough approximation of movement, they should combine everything the tribe has learned. Use the polished stone for the live element. Use multiple stones, angled differently, to catch different views of the performance at once. Use the cave wall paintings as a kind of before and after, so that even people who missed the live show can piece together what happened. And most importantly, stage the whole thing properly this time. Not as a chaotic first attempt stumbled into through trial and error, but as an actual planned production, with Thud's timing locked in from the start, with Grog's costume tested beforehand so nobody's hand goes numb mid-performance, with the choreography, if you can call Thud's stomping choreography, actually rehearsed properly. In other words, they're not just going to perform the song again. They're going to make the first real music video, the one people will talk about for the rest of this tribe's existence and possibly beyond. Grog obviously is fully on board with this the second he hears it, mostly because it means an excuse to wear an even more elaborate costume and take an even bigger bow at the end. Muga, despite everything, is also quietly excited because, for the first time, this feels like something that could actually be done right instead of held together by luck and vine-cutting emergency interventions. And Thud, well, Thud's just happy someone finally wrote down the timing so he doesn't get sparks in his own hair again. Chief Baba, meanwhile, has reappeared just in time to take full credit for the whole idea, announcing to the gathering crowd that this entire production was his vision from the very beginning. Nobody argues with him. Everyone's too busy getting ready. Preparations begin almost immediately. They test the polished stones in different positions to see which angles catch the light best. They rehearse Thud's spark timing over and over until he can do it in his sleep, which honestly might be a slight safety concern given the whole fire situation, but nobody brings that up. They fix Grog's vine circulation problem before it becomes a problem again. They even bring in a few of the kids from the tribe to run around in the background, adding a sense of scale and energy to the whole thing, which, if you think about it, is basically the earliest version of background dancers. And this time, when they finally perform it, everything lines up. The sparks fly exactly when they're supposed to. Grog's arms sweep up dramatically without any numb hand issues. The reflection in the polished stones catches the whole thing perfectly. And thanks to the extra stones positioned around the performance, more people than ever can actually see it happening at once. The cave wall painting gets updated afterward to reflect this newer, more polished version, so that even people who couldn't make it that night get a sense of what happened. By the time it's over, the entire gathered crowd is chanting the words to "Rock, Go, Boom," badly, off-key, completely out of rhythm, but with total enthusiasm. Somewhere in that crowd, a kid is doing his own version of Thud's dance. Somewhere else, someone's trying to recreate the mud and feather look with whatever they've got on hand. This dumb little song about a rock going boom, born from a purple berry and two sticks, has somehow become the biggest thing this entire region has ever seen. And that, right there, is the moment everything changes. Because up until this point, everything we've talked about, the sticks, the humming, the mud, the vines, the polished stones, the cave wall paintings, all of it has just been the lead up. The mess, the trial and error. Everything that happens before the actual thing people will remember. What happens after this moment, the actual full performance, staged properly, captured across multiple polished stones, recorded in sequence on the cave wall for generations to study and imitate, that's a whole different story. That's the part where this dumb little idea about a rock going boom turns into something that spreads from valley to valley, tribe to tribe, until it's not just Grog's song anymore. It becomes everyone's. Now, if you're the kind of person who wants to know exactly what happens when Grog, Thud, and Muga finally put on the full performance, the real deal, the one that gets talked about across every valley in the region, you're going to want to see how it all comes together because, trust me, the amount of things that could still go wrong at this scale is honestly kind of terrifying, given everything you've just heard about how this tribe operates. But for now, just sit with this. A guy with a purple berry problem, a friend who nearly set both their heads on fire, and a woman who solved literally every real problem while getting zero. Credit for it? Accidentally invented the concept of watching a performance, recording an approximation of it, and turning a song into a shared cultural moment. They didn't have a word for music video. They didn't even really have a word for music, not officially. But they built one anyway, out of stubbornness, mud, and an alarming number of near injuries. And honestly, isn't that how most great things get made? Someone with more confidence than sense has an idea. Someone more grounded fixes all the actual problems. Someone else just shows up, does their part, occasionally catches fire a little, and somehow it all comes together into something people can't stop talking about. If Grog could see what his dumb little song eventually turns into, he'd probably take credit for the whole thing anyway. That tracks. That absolutely tracks with everything you now know about him. So that's the story of everything that happened before the actual performance, before the real music video came together in front of the whole tribe and every visitor who'd traveled to see it. The costumes, the sparks, the numb hands, the polished stones, the cave wall paintings, all of it leading up to one chaotic, ridiculous, oddly beautiful night where a bunch of cavemen accidentally created something that would echo through every generation after them, whether they realized it or not. And somewhere out there, in that valley under that firelight, you can almost hear it. Two sticks banging together, a terrible off-key hum, and a whole tribe, despite themselves, unable to stop watching.